The following video is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It contains a first-hand account submitted anonymously and does not promote, encourage, or condone illegal activity of any kind. This content is shared to raise awareness about fraud tactics and to help viewers better understand how these schemes work, so they can protect themselves and others. Viewer discretion is advised. Before every kid with a hoodie thought they were dark web kingpins on Telegram, there were the real forums. Clunky, half-broken websites hidden behind onion links, with moderators who sounded like Bond villains and avatars of wolves smoking cigars. These were the digital back alleys where you could buy anything: stolen bank logins, ransomware kits, hacked Netflix accounts, passports fresh off the printer. My specialty? Counterfeit credit card blanks. Not stolen numbers, that's another guy's gig, but the canvas. High-quality PVC cards with magnetic stripes, holograms and embossed numbers, ready for whoever bought them to encode stolen data and hit ATMs. It was a strange little corner of the fraud world, and like most niches, the money was in doing what everyone else was doing, but better, faster, and without disappearing on your customers halfway through an order. I didn't stumble into making counterfeit cards by accident. No, that credit goes to a legend in the carding world. Somebody who practically invented the game about 20 years ago. They called him US Plastico. If you've ever dipped your toes into the carding scene, you know the name. He was the original mastermind who started turning blank plastic into cold, hard cash. Last I heard, he's retired now, living somewhere in Southeast Asia, running a low-key YouTube channel showing off his faded glory days. I figured if a guy like US Plastico could build $1 million empire off this stuff, then maybe I could too. That story stuck with me. It wasn't just about the cards or the tech. It was about the hustle, the grind, and having the guts to dive headfirst into a market full of scams, crappy vendors, and people who couldn't be trusted farther than they could throw a stolen mag stripe. Back then, the counterfeit white plastic market was a complete mess. Sellers were flaky, shipping took forever, and more often than not, the cards showed up warped, or with mag stripes that refused to work. Forums were littered with complaints, titles like "Another Scammer Bites the Dust" or "OP Vanished with My Bitcoin." That's when I saw my chance. Why not corner that broken market with quality that actually worked, shipping that was fast and customer service that didn't suck? Think Amazon Prime, but for felony starter kits. Prices on the forums ranged anywhere from $5 to $20 a card depending on quality, but I knew I could make them for less than $1 a piece. Best part? I didn't have to mess with stolen card numbers myself, so I could stay one step removed from the actual cash out side of things. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. My spare bedroom morphed into what I called the lab, though to anyone else it looked more like a college kid's tech hoarding nightmare. Walls stacked with boxes, cables snaking everywhere, and more blinking lights than a spaceship cockpit. I splurged on a Fargo HDP 5000 thermal printer, a beast of a machine that cost almost $1,000, capable of printing full-colour card fronts with microtext so tiny it made my eyes bleed trying to inspect the details. Then came the magnetic stripe encoder, a neat little device designed to write stolen Track 1 and Track 2 data onto the cards, turning blank plastic into instant credit access. But the real game changer was the embossing machine. I snagged a $300 model that punched raised numbers so perfectly they could fool even the most seasoned cashier. T was mechanical precision on steroids, churning out flawless card numbers with the satisfying clunk of each press. Alongside it sat my hot foil stamping press, used for applying holograms, Visa, MasterCard, Amex. All those tiny security touches that make fake cards look real. The foil overlays came from a Bulgarian seller on eBay who swore he had the cleanest, most authentic holograms on the market. My supply chain was a patchwork of questionable deals. Blank cards came from Alibaba in bulk, ribbons for the printer from a guy on Craigslist who claimed he found them in the back of a UPS truck, and the packaging was a mix of small jewellery boxes and electronics packaging. Perfect for protecting the cards during shipping and making the whole thing feel classy. Gloves were mandatory, no fingerprints, no labels, nothing to trace back to me. The obsessive tweaking was almost therapeutic. I spent hours adjusting fonts, moving hologram placements by microns, and running tests on different point-of-sale terminals to make sure my cards slipped through undetected. Once, I dropped a stack of freshly embossed blanks on the kitchen counter, and my roommate almost swiped one, thinking it was his debit card. That's how close I got it to the real deal. My plastic was completely indistinguishable from those issued by a financial institution. It was an art form, and I was the underground Picasso of plastic fraud. Getting onto the right forums wasn't about filling out a form. You had to prove yourself, post useful info, show proof of goods, and not sound like a 14-year-old who just downloaded Tor. The forums were their own ecosystem. You didn't just show up and start selling. You had to build a reputation. I started by handing out free samples to high-ranking members. Funny thing about criminals, they get real generous with praise when they smell free product. Within a week, I had vouchers. OP's blanks are A1, perfect emboss, legit weight and feel. We'll order again. Once I got in, I came in hot. Professional listings. Photos so clean you could have mistaken them for eBay stock images. Descriptions loaded with all the right buzzwords. ISO compliant, ATM tested, guaranteed magnetic encoding. I even offered gift wrapping. Yes, for criminals. The orders started trickling in, then snowballing. I sold in batches of 10, 25, and 50. All payments were in Bitcoin. Fresh wallet for every order, never reused addresses. Shipping was vacuum sealed with enough bubble wrap to survive a small explosion. Within the first week, I moved 200 blanks. By month 3, I was pushing over 1,000. I ran flash sales for Christmas, Halloween, even tax day. Celebrate Uncle Sam's special day with 15% off all fraud supplies. Most of my buyers were fraud crews, people already buying stolen CC numbers from other vendors. They'd encode my blanks, then hit ATMs or go on electronic shopping sprees. One crew in Chicago sent me a photo of a table piled with PlayStation 4s and Louis Vuitton bags. Another sent a grainy flip phone picture of a casino slot machine captioned, "Your blanks, my data, big night." I didn't respond. Too much chit-chat in this line of work is how people get caught. At my peak, I was moving close to around 500 cards a month. That translated to anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000 pure profit every single month, all tax-free and under the radar. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. I wasn't selling singles or small bundles. The standard package was a minimum of 100 cards plus 25 fake IDs for $1,000 a pop. I had wholesale customers who'd place standing orders every Friday, 200 cards at a time, no questions asked. My rep for throwing in extras like free hologram sheets, extra mag stripes, and even custom logo requests was legendary. Want your fake card to look like a platinum tier Amex? No problem, buddy, I got you covered. When business was booming, I was hitting 100 orders a month. That's a cool $100,000 in revenue right from my cluttered bedroom lab. Money was flowing faster than I could count, and Bitcoin prices were still low enough that I didn't mind the fees eating into my margins. I'd wake up to fresh deposits every day, and a dozen new messages from buyers looking to score the latest batch of blanks. Some stories from the buyers were gold. One guy from Florida told me he used my blanks to accidentally charge a $6,000 Rolex. Just slipped it past the clerk like it was no big deal. Another buyer bragged about walking into a gas station and convincing the cashier that his stack of cards were company gift cards, getting a full tank and then some without a second glance. I even had a UK client who ordered 50 blanks and proudly claimed he spent his haul buying nothing but high-end whiskey. If you're going to commit fraud, why not do it drunk and classy, right? This was my golden age. Bitcoin was dirt cheap, underground forums were booming with traffic, and law enforcement barely blinked at card blanks. Their eyes were all on the data thieves, the hackers, and the breach artists, not the lowly plastic suppliers like me. I felt untouchable, like I was running a Fortune 500 company in my pajamas, printing money one blank card at a time. Turns out, I wasn't as untouchable as I thought. The feds didn't bust me by hacking the forums or cracking my encryption. They found me through the post office of all places. One random package heading to a buyer in Ohio got pulled for inspection during a routine postal check. The X-ray tech wasn't looking for me specifically. just suspicious parcels. But when they saw a neat stack of identical cards, each exactly like the others, red flags went up immediately. Here's where the dominoes started to fall. That buyer was already under investigation for a separate fraud case. Once the feds grabbed him, it didn't take much convincing. He flipped faster than you can say wire fraud. He gave them my username, detailed transaction history, shipping schedules, even the exact way I vacuum sealed and wrapped every order, down to the bubble wrap thickness and jewellery boxes I used to keep the cards pristine. From there, it was a digital breadcrumb trail straight to me. The Cybercrime Task Force subpoenaed the forum's entire database, got their hands on encrypted messages, and matched my PGP key to a Gmail account I'd carelessly used once, just one time, to test an encryption setup. Rookie mistake. My IP address back to my apartment. I'd spent years covering my tracks, rotating wallets, burner phones, proxies, and all it took was a 15-minute lapse in judgment. That moment of laziness was enough to bring the whole operation crashing down. It's the classic tale. No matter how clever you think you are, it's always the small slip-ups that do you in. I went from kingpin of the card blanks to just another guy with a federal indictment in no time. I was hit with charges for trafficking in counterfeit access devices, possession of device-making equipment, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The feds claimed my blanks were connected to over $3.1 million in fraud downstream. Funny thing is, I never saw a single cent of that cash. But in the eyes of the law, if your product touches a crime, you own the crime. I took a plea deal to dodge a trial. 46 months in federal prison, plus forfeiture of my printers, and a fleet of Cadillacs I'd carefully cycled through, along with several penthouse condos scattered across the country. From Miami to LA, I had spots that made it look like I was living the high life of a Bond villain, and maybe, on paper, I was. But behind closed doors, I was just a guy in a cluttered spare bedroom juggling Amazon orders and obsessing over hologram placements. Getting caught wasn't some dramatic bust with sirens blaring. No, it was a postal inspector and a careless buyer who cracked the whole thing. One wrong package, one guy singing like a canary, and suddenly everything I built was unravelling like cheap thread. I remember the day they knocked on my door. Calm, routine, almost polite. No need for SWAT or raid gear. Just papers, questions, and the sinking feeling that comes when you know the game's up. I tried to stay sharp, but you only need one moment of laziness, one email sent from the wrong IP, one slip up with your burner phones, and they find you. Years of careful planning ended because of a 15-minute lapse. That's the nature of this game. So yeah, it looked like a lavish operation from the outside. But the truth? I was a guy with a knack for supply chain management, hiding behind a screen, selling plastic cards no one wanted to question. A mastermind? Maybe. A kingpin? Sure. But just a man behind a keyboard all along. Counterfeit card blanks were never about smash and grab crime. It was about running a business, a very illegal business, with production schedules, inventory management, and repeat customers. The dark web runs on trust, and the ones who stay in the game longest are the ones who deliver on time. This guy was good at it. Maybe not as good as the GOAT, but damn good. The thing about running an illegal business is that the longer you operate, the more moving parts you add, and eventually one of those parts fails. For him, it was a box flagged by a bored postal inspector. That's the story. The counterfeit card market is still out there, just buried deeper, running quieter. These scams wreck lives, empty bank accounts, and leave everyday people holding the bill. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content. Until next time, stay paranoid, stay safe.